Hello, my name is Craig Mason from MIPIM. This is a new series called Property Influencers, where we talk to some of the top people in the real estate and property market. Here I am with Harold Garrison, who is the Chairman and CEO of HDG Mansur. Mr. Garrison, welcome to MIPIM.
Oh, thank you.
For those that aren't familiar with your company, just explain a little bit about what you guys do.
Basically, we're a two-platform company on an international basis. We have both fund and asset management for investment in properties on an international platform, and we also do development. Most of that development is focused around large, complex, mixed-use projects.
If you had to rethink the property industry, what would you start with, and what areas do you think are interesting to be, rethought?
That's a good question. I was having this conversation earlier today, is that the rethink that is required today, we've actually gone through, in my business cycle, probably three of these, from the early 80s, the early 90s, and the early 2000s, all of them being recessions of one type or another. They've all required a revision to the industry. I think part of what we saw in the early 90s was in the US was the big move to REITs, because companies were in so much trouble. They had to find other capital sources to be able to move forward in the industry. And of course, that's at a rather grand stage in the US real estate market, as you have some of the largest property companies in the world now that grew out of a recession. And today, I think we have some similar things beginning to happen. One is I think from so many different views, though, and from areas. One is you see the governmental change, and it's beginning to have an impact on our industry in that in raising capital, which many of the people are doing here today and trying to find capital, that's coming under regulatory bodies, and different regulatory bodies in Europe and in the US and elsewhere in the world. That's going to change a lot of the companies, including our own, as to operate under those guidelines and those requirements.
How do you manage risk, and how do you give shareholder value, but at the same time managing the risk environment? It's a complex mix, and I'm just curious as to your approach to that.
Well, it's ever changing, and it's ever challenging, and I do think that the investors have a place of responsibility in that cycle you just mentioned, because as you move into those hot markets, the expectations of the investors, be they high net worth individuals or institutions, they are sometimes in the forefront of are demanding a higher returns and or more speculative returns. So it is often very difficult to manage that, even if you are a good trooper and a good manager, and trying to say in that hot market is, we shouldn't be participating, it's too expensive, it's not going to work. And to do that, then watch the capital go elsewhere. For a period of time, it's going to appear that you're wrong. And that period of time can be difficult for you to motivate your people and et cetera.
I mean, if you were to reimagine cities and how they're developing, and how the future of property fits into the development of urban centres, what's your vision?
Well, this is something that is central to our vision on developments. There have been decades that, whether in the U.S. and less so in Europe, where the market hasn't been too sensitive to those issues. And those cities that haven't dealt with it and recognized that it is necessary to understand the living environment, the social needs, and then the importance of architecture and planning, et cetera, those cities now see today in these downturns the difficulty that they have in competing against other cities that made the investment. And that's an investment in capital, but it's also an investment in establishing the need to have those goals and to execute on them. And so we're always a proponent, and like in our Bristol project, we have doing a large mixed-use project right in the heart of the city, and you have you've got historical issues to deal with, and you have then the new fabric that you're creating. But at the end of the day, between housing and office and retail, is that what kind of living environment are you creating? And I would put a high importance, and I look to any city that is focused on trying to maintain and to execute and put forth a future vision for their cities, that, without a doubt, they'll be at the top performers economically. It's sometimes hard for them to understand that in the beginning. But I think you see some fruits of that today, as the competition is very strong, as every city is trying to hold on to those businesses.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate that, and
My
we hope
pleasure.
you have a good rest of the time here at MIPIM.
Good, thank you.